I'm going to now introduce the next session because I know we've got some eager people waiting in the wings to watch this, and I know we've got some eager people waiting in the wings to present it as well. So our next session is a panel discussion around what digitization really means for manufacturers, and that's a perspective we've kind of hinted at a couple of times here, right? We've had Gap's perspective on how they engage with their supply chain and how important digital capabilities and skills are in the supply chain. We've had Browseware there showcasing the interlink between 3D simulation and 2D patterns and how important that is to be able to make that manufacturable and producible. Now I'd like to hand over to my friend Gabby Shiner-Hill from Bureau 555. She's going to lead a panel discussion. Hey, Gabby. She's going to lead a panel discussion with Nusrat Mahmud and with Ashraque Andalib. They're going to join her to talk about just why it's so important to build those digital skills and those digital capabilities in the supply chain, how far those digital skills and capabilities already exist, and why it's so important to digitize at source. So without further ado, over to you folks.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm just getting the screen share up, just making sure it's not, wait for it to come up there. Brilliant, thank you. So good morning, good afternoon and good evening, everyone, wherever you're listening from. So thank you to Alvanon for having us, and thank you to the previous speakers as well. It's been totally fascinating listening in. Gap, it's great to see your journey. My name is Gabrielle Shiner-Hill, and I'm the co-founder of Bureau 555, a digital creative agency based out of Dhaka, Bangladesh and London, and I'm moderating the panel today. So today we are addressing what does digitization mean when you are a manufacturer? And we do hope to touch upon some of the challenges, how brands can support producing countries to adopt digital product creation. So I have with me today Nusrat Mahmud, Director of Textile Mill Hamid Fabrics, and Andalib, Graphic Designer at garment manufacturer Centro, both based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. They'll be giving you their introductions in just a minute. I'm going to quickly show you some context around our side. So who are Bureau 555? We are a digital product creation agency founded in 2021. We are a company born out of the supply chain's needs during the pandemic. So yes, we are a supply chain baby. We specialize in material digitization, fabrics prepared for use in softwares such as Clo, Browseware, Optitex, Video. We work on pattern and block library conversion, 3D garment sampling, and AR and VR realities. With both founders coming from a textile background, we are a material first company. I'm not exaggerating when I say that we are obsessed with the quality of our digital assets. We do believe that, just like in the real world, if you start your digital garment creation with high quality fabric, then you will be able to make superior quality 3D garments. And a key element to our service is that we are scanning at source in Dhaka. So as we know, we've got a great mill and manufacturing supply chain in Dhaka, and we are working with them at the moment. So I'm going to hand over to Nusrat to introduce Hamid Fabrics.
Hi, Gabby. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alvanon, for having us here today. So my name is Nusrat. I'm from Dhaka, Bangladesh. I'm representing Hamid Fabrics Limited. We are a woven mill based in North Shindi, which is like an hour and a half from the city. And we specialize in piece dye and yarn dye fabrics. As you can see, we're doing like 40 million yards a year. And our core products are in piece dye, and we specialize in making products with cotton and cotton spandex, and of course we do some cellulosic blends as well. And we are very much ahead in our digital journey, which I will touch upon after Andalib's intro. Thank you.
Hey, Andalib.
Hi. So I'm Ashraque Andalib. I'm also based in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and I am a graphic designer at Centro Limited. And to specify, Centro is basically a trading organization, and we mostly deal with garment manufacturing. And we started in 2006 with 2 Danish customers. And now we have expanded into Australia, New Zealand, UK, and other European countries. We are also expanding into North America and South America. Our organization has our own design team, compliance team, a quality team, and we are also looking into sustainability departments because, as we know, the world has a limited amount of resources, and we want to be as sustainable as possible. So yeah, that pretty much covers it.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So I'm going to just stop screen sharing for a second because that was context setting. So let's kick off with our first question. So maybe if I could ask Nusrat to start with, could you share with us where you are on your digital product creation journey, thinking about the digitization of fabrics?
Okay, so before I go to the digitization of fabric, I would like to say that, like in terms of going digital, Hamid's actually started its journey about a year ago. So we're one of the key mills in Bangladesh who are doing digital color approvals, like with lab dips and dye lots and in bulk. So afterwards, like after we felt more confident that, digital is helping us, be more efficient, save time, save costs and everything, we have started digitizing our fabric library. So we've been in the business for almost 25 years now. So there's like a lot of fabric to digitize. So at the moment, we are in the process of digitizing all our cores in piece dye and yarn dye. And I would say that we're around like 30% there. And we're not only digitizing fabrics for visuals, like the key thing here is how to kind of extend the life of a digital asset. So we're also adding physics to some of our core fabrics and storing them on our cloud.
Excellent, thank you. And Andalib, on your side, thinking about digital fabrics and garment and 3D garment design, can you share where you are as a manufacturer on your journey?
We basically started our journey during 2020, right at the start of COVID. So yeah, it basically pushed us into 3D, and we are still new to it. It's not like we are extremely experienced in this sector yet, but what we have learned so far is with digitized fabrics, we can actually represent how the actual fabric looks, how it has the physics of it, how it's going to drape on a person, and how it's going to work on a garment, right? So that also helps us create 3D garments that actually are really realistic to an extent, so that our clients can actually visualize as to what the product is actually going to look like. So
100%, yeah. So digital perception is quite big.
Yeah, that is our goal. We have started it, and we are moving forward, so to speak.
Fantastic. So Andalib as well, which key areas of your production and workflow do you see that can be improved? So speaking from a manufacturer's point, where do you see areas of your workflow can be improved with digitization, and what would you expect to see, even if you're at the beginning of that journey?
From my perspective, I would have to say that since as a designer, it's far more easier for me to present my imagination of what a garment should look like, or the styling that I'm creating, how I want it to represent, basically. So going 3D helps me represent it instead of doing just a flat sketch, which doesn't really share a lot of my imagination. I can work on it for hours, but it still won't be an actual garment, right? But for 3D, you are actually getting a 1-to-1 ratio of the actual garment that you're creating. So that is one part. Then there's obviously, it helps reduce the time, the lead time, because we are always sampling and our clients are, let's say, not sure about the styles, or they don't like the style that we made. There's some mistake there. And we are constantly reworking those stylings. And what happens is it becomes a long process. But with 3D, when we do that, if they don't like something, they can ask us and we can just quickly change it, right?
Indeed.
And it also creates an aspect of sustainability for us, because we are not wasting resources. We are not wasting fabrics by making the same sample over and over again. We are not printing the same artwork over and over again just to achieve one simple aspect of the garment. So these are pretty much what helps us currently.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andalib. And Nusrat, on your side, what improvements as a mill, what improvements would you expect to see? Is it increase in efficiency or speed to market? What would you expect to see from digital production and digital workflows?
So, Andalib, like I completely agree with you when you say that, like so much time and resources can be saved, especially at the sampling stage. So, Gabby, I would say that, already with the digital color approvals, we are saving on time. And, like we're saving on time, we're saving paperwork, we're saving money as well, there. So I think if we could also have the same thing, in sampling, especially when it comes to handlooms, we could kind of, work closer to season. We could also kind of be more prepared to like do R&D on styles that are non-cores. So because like sampling takes up such a big, percentage, of our time and like of our capacity, I do think that if we could split it between the cores and the fashion, if we could digitize the core part, focus a little bit on the fashion part, I do think that that could bring more value, to the brands and of course us. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. And so then thinking about, again, it's touched on slightly earlier in some of the discussions earlier about the biggest barriers to adopting the digital product creation workflows. So I'd be interested to hear from both of you about what you feel is some of the biggest barriers, whether it's attitudes, change managements, or software. Where do you, I don't know, Nusrat, you're smiling. Would you like to go first?
Mindset. That's the biggest challenge, because in Bangladesh traditionally we're very used to doing things manually. We're very used to doing things by hand. Technology used to scare us. But I do think that, like there's so much talk about it right now, it's all over the internet, the newspapers, everywhere. Like people are slowly, like easing more into the idea of digitization, even in the mill level, or probably Andalib, I think you can also help us out here. Like, is it the same thing in the PD level, like, with the design team and the pattern cutters and stuff? Like how comfortable are they overall with digitization now versus how they were 10 years ago?
Yeah,
I see a big change in Hamid, and
Yeah.
I see the same thing in different mills as well.
Yeah, within Centro, if I have to say something, then we are more now adapting to 3D designing and 3D garment creation. Our QA team is also looking into 3D to do fit tests and stuff like that for our customers, right? To avoid making samples and doing the fit test, they're just going to do it like that. But the barrier that I think we are facing is obviously, like Nusrat said, mindset. Some of our customers, some of our suppliers have a hard time adopting 3D because they're so used to touching the garment and feeling the fabric. They really don't want to believe that the 3D is exactly what they're seeing and what they can feel, right? So unless they can see it up front like this and they can touch it, they really don't want to accept it. So that is one of our biggest barrier at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought in the barriers between the fact that we've got obviously the mindsets of your customers, i.e. the brands and the retailers, and also the mindsets of the people working in your companies as well. So it's actually looking at it being sat in the middle and trying to train and educate the brands in what you can provide them, but also train and educate your employees to adopt these new types of workflows. And these types of workflows aren't there to take away jobs. Those new types of workflows are there to increase the desirability of Bangladesh as a production country. That's what we're
to upskill and reskill.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think that at the mill level, it's already happening. It's on process. At the garment level, like that's something that that will need to happen. As we grow as as an economy.
Yeah. I mean, no one is ever going to lose their job just because, I mean, we are going to 3D, right? It's not going to stop sample making. There will always be product developers. We would obviously always need product developers. Just because we can do something in 3D doesn't mean we can do literally everything in 3D. There will be situations when we might need to make a sample. So there, I mean, there's no risk to anyone's job. More like we would have more opportunities for new jobs.
100%, 100%. So, and then how do you see that brands could support manufacturers to adopt digital product creation more quickly, understanding that you both are already on that journey? But is there a way that you see that brands could help or support in some way around getting you started or getting you further along on the journey? Maybe for Nusrat as a starting point.
Yeah, I think, brands, the biggest thing they can do right now is kind of do that hand holding that, our friends at Gap were talking about, like a couple of minutes ago. And of course, like, like they kind of need to get the process kickstarted. Like they need to kickstart the process. Like we need to kind of make a decision that, okay, X amount is going to be virtually made, and then we need to stick to it. And then we also need to kind of learn, like how it can be efficiently done through trial and error. But it needs to start, because the more we talk about it, the less we start. Like we have like all these assumptions, which is confusing more, like for both parties, especially at the mill or garment end, because as I said, like in Bangladesh, we weren't as tech savvy as rest of the world, but now we're getting there, right? So I think, brands can just, help kickstart the process. And once that is done, I do believe that things will fall into place.
Yeah, indeed. Andalib, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I completely agree with Nusrat here. And the fact is that let's say, I will just give a small example. Let's say some of our customers have a product line that is like only one style, but there are like 10 colorways to that. What they're doing is they're actually making us make samples for all 10 colors, which is absolutely unnecessary. So what they could do is maybe take one sample and get the rest of them in 3D product. That would obviously be a start for us. That would be something that they could help us out with, right? So, and then going forward, once they see that, okay, this is working out really nicely, maybe altogether stop making samples for a few of their garments, and then going forward and at some point adopting 3D completely and getting rid of the whole sampling process. So yeah, they can definitely help us.
I can see some questions coming up. We have one last question, and then we can address some of the ones that have come up in the comments, because there's some really important ones there. So the last point I wanted to address with the two of you was about quality. And I'm talking about quality here when we're thinking about the digital quality resolution, the quality of the assets, how we're going to use them. So quality is at the heart of a successful business, and we know it's what sets manufacturers and factories apart, and it can make or break your next order. So how can brands support companies like yourselves to create the highest quality digital assets and garments? So maybe Andalib, do you have any thoughts around that?
Practically working with 3D softwares, what I have faced is every customer has their own requirement. Everyone has a random requirement. They want 4 angles of the garment. Someone wants a video of it moving 360, and someone wants the avatar to literally walk, right? So, but I think we need a standardized process of presenting it, because I mean, so that even for newer customers, if they want to adopt 3D, so that they can actually somehow see our standardized process and be like, okay, this looks really interesting, I want to try this. So I think having a standard process for it, so that our customers can interact with them, then that way we can actually work more into and get others to adopt 3D.
Yeah. And anything on your side there about standardization or quality at all, Nusrat?
Well, I think, like the beauty of working virtually is how, we can work no matter where we are, we can all work together, at any time of the day or night. So I do think that, in terms of quality, if we want to get the best out of this, co-creation, like brands, mills, garment factories, the three of us can co-create. The three of us can, work together to create the best, digital asset that is out there, which will be beneficial for everybody. So I do think that, there's a huge opportunity there. And, once, like I said, once the process starts, I think, we'll be able to kind of see that practically.
Thank you both. I mean, I'd love to address some of the questions that have come through from the audience here. And one is a really interesting one, which we've spoken about, I think, prior to this, which is about the accountability for possible mistakes. So as a manufacturer, Sfer has said, I feel like the accountability for any possible mistakes will fall into a grey area. How would you deal with something that arises through the actual production? And I don't want to speak for you guys, but just leading to what you just said, Nusrat, around the fact that it's collaboration and co-creation. We need to have some form of something set out, because there is a back and forth between brands and vendors.
Absolutely.
We know,
like
yeah,
there needs to be like a proper quality manual, that will, enable, mills, factories, agencies to kind of create those assets. So once those guidelines are set,
yeah,
I think, we could be in a certain direction. And, if there is a mistake, like what you just said, Gabby, like collaboration, right? Like I feel like it's less costly and faster to identify a mistake, in the product creation stage virtually rather than physically. When, when you're stuck with us, you see a sample, you receive it, it's not right. Then the process is to restart all over again. So yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And actually,
I would just like to add
yes, Andalib.
something small here. Let's say when we are doing the sample in 3D, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the buyer can sign off on it, but it doesn't mean that it's just going to go straight without any prior checking of the fit and whatnot and the fabrics. Anything, literally, it's just going straight to production, right? There will be a stage where maybe instead of making 10 samples, we are making one sample with the correct fabric, with the correct print and everything. And then the buyer can check that. And obviously then and there, if they have any comments, we can fix that. And we obviously do lab dips for fabric colors, right? To get them accurate, because no matter how many times we do it in 3D, everyone's screens aren't the same. I might be using the accurate Pantone, but doesn't mean the customer is using the accurate color, accurate monitor. So they might not even be able to see the proper thing. So we would obviously have to have small aspects of, let's say, how the fabric might look, maybe a small piece, but it would be a reference for them that they can have and work against when it comes to production. So I don't think accountability would be exactly that once we present it to them, they can verify it before going straight to production.
Yeah, definitely. Such good points, I think. And I think Will Hunter has also asked about systems compatibility between mills and the customer as it relates to 3D for fabric approval. So systems are an interesting one, because obviously a lot of the manufacturers have to take their lead from their customer base of what system they're using. So compatibility does tend to be a slight issue. There is a universal fabric format, a universal file format, which we can use, which has smoothed a few things out, but it's not completely fixed within the industry, I would say. So it's once we know where the brands are going, let's say, then we can make sure everything is prepared correctly in the right systems.
Agreed. And I think, like it is important for the systems to be compatible, just like, especially, when you're viewing things on your screens need to be calibrated, right? Like they need to be calibrated to a certain degree. So I think it is important, but like you just said, like we still don't know, which way, things are going, which way people are going. So I guess we'll need to wait and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last thing, which I thought was super interesting, so from Macass, is do suppliers view the 3D images as an extra charge, or is it cost of doing business in the coming digital world? So I would say this, from what we've experienced currently, this is not resolved and it's not finalized within the workflow. A lot of the talk is around, obviously, the brands want to digitize and the vendors also want to digitize, but the brands want the vendors to digitize as opposed to brands digitizing and pushing it out. So I think it's going to be it's an open conversation. I think it's a cost of business for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's also case by case, right? Like if I look at the sampling at Hamid, we're doing a big percentage, just free of cost. We're doing another percentage, like the bigger, sample requests, like, that's being charged. So it depends. It's case by case. It depends on what kind of sample
same
it
for
is.
Centro. It's not. Yeah, same for Centro. We are not. It's when I'm doing something, a design in 3D, we are not actually charging the customer for it. We're just presenting it to them exactly how we would have done it in a flat sketch or in a tech pack or any way we do present it. But we are not actually charging them extra for the 3D images. What might happen in the long run is if our customers have of a specific body type and avatar measurement that they want to use and follow for us, maybe that's an investment that they would have to do. They would provide us with the avatar, because obviously we are, as manufacturers, we can't really go and buy all the different kind of avatars and different sizes just because we think that some customer might need it at some point, right? So that's something that can be our customers' investment into the digital world, basically.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all of those comments. And I think it's kind of interesting to kind of round it up in the sense of we know that standardization around the quality of the digital assets is going to be really important for the supply chain to feel confident that they're providing the right type of digital assets that are needed for the customer. And also, as some of the panelists, some of the audience are asking, yes, there are still physical samples, but not if you're doing a core piece that's again and again just being refreshed with color. My argument would be, why are you making a physical sample still if you fit it and all you're doing is changing the color? But maybe playing devil's advocate there. Are there any last points either from Nusrat or Andalib?
Well, the last thing I'm going to say for tonight is, digitization. It's not something that's futuristic. It's happening now. So, like, the more we immerse ourselves in it, like the more, we practice it, the more comfortable we will be, taking it forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andalib, anything
Same
from you?
here. Yeah, same here. I mean, we are already in a digital world, right? So with the metaverse and everything, it's a digital world now. So yeah, I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that as manufacturers and our customers, we are all going to soon adopt 3D product developments so that, I mean, it's just a no-brainer for me, because I mean we're just wasting resources by making the same sample over and over and over again. And this is just a simple process of just getting someone to do a 3D garment and they can just sign off on it. So
you make
yeah,
it
I'm
sound so
hopeful
easy,
that
Andalib. This is great. This is fantastic. So yes, just to wrap up for everyone. So basically, just to give you some insight that, you know, the supply base is here. We're ready. We're ready to digitize. We're ready to make the samples. It's a question of collaboration, co-creation, knowledge exchange, talking and partnerships, and that's really what we need to just keep the energy moving on this. So thank you to both panel members for your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And
thank
I'll
you.
hand over to Ben.
Thanks very much, Gabby. Thank you, Nusrat. Thanks, Andalib. That was a great discussion. Thanks very much for your perspective. I think it's really interesting to see. You know, Nusrat was saying that there was a mindset shift that's happened in the supply chain. It's happened specifically in Bangladesh in this case, and there's a reticence, perhaps historically, to move towards technology. I think it's important to underline that's not exclusive to the supply chain. That same mindset shift applies everywhere. There are a huge amount of brands who are, to pick up your latter point there. There's a lot of brands who are not ready to do digital color approvals any more than the supply chain partner is ready to do digital color approvals. It's a pendulum that no matter which way it swings, you're always going to encounter somebody who isn't quite ready to accept something, or somebody who isn't quite ready to send something. And I think the core message of this discussion, and probably a lot of the other sessions we're going to have, is that in the middle of those two extremities of pendulum swing, the systems are there, the structures are there, the processes are there. It's a question of who is the first to say we have the confidence in our skill sets and our capabilities and in our setup to really go for this and to really push it forward. And I think that's not a conversation that should be led by either party in isolation. It's something that has to happen together. If we use digital color approvals as an example, you really have to move forward with it and say, we are placing the trust in this collectively as a collaborative partnership between brand and manufacturer, or brand and mill. We have the confidence in the technology. And I think perhaps I'm slightly biased because I am a technology evangelist after all, but I think everybody should have the confidence in the technology for the most part. It's then a confidence of saying, let's run with it. Let's try this out. Let's make this work. And I think that's a message that's coming across through this session and through other ones, is that if you put your confidence in it, if you put your trust in technology, if you put your trust in the party on the other end of the technology channel, this kind of thing can happen, and that momentum that Gabby talked about can be maintained.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Not at all. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you. All three of you, not both.